Every step you take is a milestone in the story of your life. Creating the life that you want. Charge your life. Charge your life. Charge your life.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the first episode of the podcast series, Milestones of Courage. This is Leanne Allwise, the creator and founder of Chart Your Life. I started this year with the intention of living more of a courageous life. Courage was the word that I decided to have this year as my guideline and my new adventure into exploring the meaning of courage. The first thing I did was I went to the dictionary and I looked at the definition of courage. And here's what it says. 1. Quality of mind or spirit that enables a person to face difficulty, danger, pain, etc. without fear, bravery. 2. Obsolete, the heart as a source of emotion. 3. Have the courage of one's convictions to act in accordance with one's belief, especially in spite of criticism. I just love all three of these definitions. Together, they seem to really mesh into one beautiful feeling of empowerment, of really what courage feels to me. I see it in such a huge range of ways and possibilities of different elements of using courage. It can be big and it can be small. It can be a physical act or just a vulnerability of sharing who we are, that risk of vulnerability. It can be showing up in the world and showing up for ourselves too. It has a physical act, it has an emotional act, it has the standing within our own truth, which is in spite of criticism. So I really love that definition. The courage to seek new ways of thinking, of practicing new emotional habits, and the courage to let go of all thought patterns and emotional attachments, I think, is what we struggle with most, what really is part of our everyday life. And courage can be an outside job, it can be an inside job of us with ourselves. And many times courage is a combination of inside work we do with ourselves before we take the next courageous step and bring it outside to the world, for the world to see. So when we think of courage, we always think about big things, but in reality, courage comes in many different sizes and many different ways. And actually, that big thing is a lot of times made out of a lot of small things. Courage is also, I think, something that is very individual. It contains anything that we find as challenging for us that has a risk of some kind. Courage can be a physical act like running into a burning building to save a life or taking an adventurous risk for fun and just go bungee jumping. But it can also mean speaking up our inner truth, opening up to be vulnerable. It's a challenge. It's anything that takes us to the edge of our comfort zone. It's individual to each person. So courage is where we dare to step into something that is uncertain, new, a little risky, and stretches us to grow and reach new places in our lives. Courage is actually a tool of empowerment. It's conquering, it's triumph, and it's encouraging because once we do it, it feels really good. Courage is built by many small steps, small milestones of daring, of stepping into the edges of our comfort zone, one step at a time, and celebrating each and every small stepping stone we arrive at. I think that's a very important component that a lot of times we neglect to celebrate, even small steps that we take because we keep demanding ourselves something that is much bigger. And we neglect to see how even the smallest step is part of the journey to get to that other place. And by actually stopping and celebrating it, we can encourage and empower ourselves much more instead of criticizing ourselves. It's not enough. No, this is what I just did and this is great. It doesn't matter how small it is. It's perfect. It's part of it. I'm going to celebrate it because this is going to be my way towards the next step. Because from where we are right now and the places we want to get to, there's a path of milestones for us to work on. If we try to jump from the stone that we're on to 10 stones forward, we're probably not going to make it, and we're probably going to end up falling and hurting ourselves. And it's much harder to take that huge leap to that 10 stones ahead of us than taking that one just very gentle, almost unnoticeable step onto the next milestone that is right in front of us. So in celebrating these milestones of courage in the small steps that build our triumphant moments and stretch us to places beyond what we ever thought possible, I'm taking my own step onto a milestone of creating and bringing to you this podcast series, Milestones of Courage. In addition, I would like to invite you to join us on my Facebook Milestone of Courage community. Just look up Milestones of Courage and you will see that. You can also go onto my website. There's an invitation for you to join us there. It's a closed group and it's free. So come join us and let's celebrate and encourage each other with our own milestones of courage. Okay, so a big portion of our lives today includes social media. We're living in an era where we share ourselves with the world with the clicking of a button. This medium of social media has its benefits and downfalls. We're much more susceptible to both praise and scrutinizing judgment. On one side, we're wired and craving for connection, to be seen and heard and accepted for who we really are. On the flip side of it, there's a wider audience out there that is judging us and criticizing our lives in front of the entire world. It's a tough thing to navigate ourselves in the world of social media, and the lines between showing off and showing up are sometimes blurry. The difference between showing too much and showing up courageously yet safely in our vulnerability is not always a clear one. And that's the subject of what I want to talk about today. How can we share ourselves openly and vulnerably on social media in a safe way? Miriam's story demonstrates a wonderful, inspirational, slow and safe way of stepping into the edges of her comfort zone, one milestone of vulnerability and courage at a time, into sharing the truth of who she is and creating a new future filled with new possibilities by sharing her story with the world. Her story is inspiring and special. Let's hear her story. Okay, we are here with Miriam, who has recently posted a very vulnerable, courageous post on her Facebook page and shared something about herself in a very courageous way. The way she got to do it was a very interesting way, which incorporated a lot of small steps, small courageous steps that helped her get to that point of feeling safe enough and secure enough to post on Facebook. So, hello, Miriam.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
Why don't you just tell us a little bit about yourself?
So, I'm a 33-year-old Orthodox Jewish married woman, and I have 2 kids, and I'm also a social worker. And I've been working on myself for years to improve myself. I'm a deep thinker. I love being around people. And I'm passionate about making a difference in the world in the way that only I can. And recently I decided to share on my Facebook that I have bipolar disorder. And that was a big step for me.
So why don't you tell us a little bit about your journey on how you got to the place where you felt confident enough and courageous enough and safe enough to come out and post that beautiful post, by the way, on Facebook?
It was definitely a big risk that I took, and I didn't know how people would react. I was just assuming the best. Based on what I did before I actually posted on Facebook. It took me a while to get there. And I think part of what encouraged me to be courageous was that I was dissatisfied with my life because I felt like I wasn't courageous. I knew that there was more to life and that I had more to offer the world. And I wanted to stop hiding and show up. And so that's what started it. So it all started off with Brené Brown. I got involved in her books, and I was just amazed at her work because there was just so many things that I didn't know that I learned from her. And so I started taking a course with her, and then through the course, there was a whole community of people who were also involved in it, and we started a Facebook group. And in that Facebook page, I started to allow myself to be vulnerable with other people. And that was something that I had never done my whole life. I had always worked so hard not to be vulnerable because I was afraid of getting hurt, that it was in that class that I started to allow myself to be vulnerable. And I started slowly but surely posting things that I wrote to the Facebook group and getting all this positive feedback from people. And people responded and reacted so well that it made me feel even more safe within myself to share what I had to share. And it really made me start to be more comfortable about showing up in the world and offering what I had to offer. And then at one point, after sharing a lot and getting a lot of great feedback, because of that Facebook group, I started sharing on my own Facebook page. I started sharing my own writing, and I got all this positive feedback from there. And then I had a long conversation about how my mental illness doesn't define me with my acupuncturist. And after that, it was really hitting home what we had been talking about. And I wrote something about myself and about my bipolar disorder. And I really wanted to share it with my friends on Facebook, but I didn't know how they would respond. So instead, I posted onto the Facebook group for Brene Brown. I shared with them what I wanted to share with my Facebook friends and asked what they thought. I asked like 2 questions. First, I shared what I was going to share with my Facebook group, and I got good feedback about that. But then I also said, well, what do you think about me sharing this with my friends? Mm-hmm. And I didn't get so much feedback about that. A big part of what Brene talks about is sharing, being vulnerable with appropriate people. And when you go on Facebook and you're posting for all your friends, you're not necessarily being vulnerable with appropriate people, because there are going to be people among your Facebook friends that are not necessarily going to take it well. So that's why I felt like people didn't know what to tell me. Some people were trying to support me, but I wasn't really getting a clear answer from Brene's followers about whether I should post it on my Facebook. So I decided that I was going to share it with another group, and this was an Orthodox Jewish group of women. And I figured if I shared it with them, I could see what they thought about it, and that might give me an idea of what my friends would think. And I immediately got a lot of feedback. I didn't even tell them what I was going to share. I just said something really vulnerable. And everyone was like, be careful. You're going to get feedback that people are not going to like it. You have to be prepared for that. And I was kind of like taken aback by all the warnings. And I was like, I could have really gone down the path of, oh my gosh, this is going to be a big mistake and I shouldn't do it. And after that, I started sharing it with some people that I was friends with that I had never shared that I had bipolar with. And I got such great feedback from them that I decided, even though it was totally risky and I had gotten all this feedback that I shouldn't do it, I decided to do it anyway. And it was interesting because there must have been something in me that just really wanted to do it, because I just ignored all of them. And it gave me the strength and the courage to feel like I could share with more people. And the responses were amazing. I got so much positive feedback from everybody, and it felt so good, and I felt so supported. It was like I had been wearing this mask for so many years, and it was almost like I took off my mask and people liked what they saw underneath.
How was the support from the Brene Brown's group when you told them that you were bipolar?
I got a lot of great support. It was wonderful. It was a great feeling, and I really felt good about sharing it.
So despite the fact that this group of Jewish Orthodox women, that is pretty much the same group that you were trying to come out to on Facebook, said, be cautious and be careful, you still felt inside you that you wanted to share it. What was that feeling like?
It was like there was a voice of truth inside of me. When I heard everyone saying not to do it and mentioning the fact that people would judge, I felt like I could hear my own inner voice louder than all those other voices. and it was saying, "This is what you want to do." And I really trusted that voice.
Would it be fair to say that you felt safe and secure enough that no matter what the responses would have been, you knew you were going to be okay?
I don't know if I would take it that far, because I think if I would have gotten a lot of negative responses, it would have been really devastating to me. But I felt confident enough in what I had to say, and I believed that I was going to get positive feedback.
You believed you were going to get positive feedback because of your prior experiences in the Brene Brown group and other people that you have spoken to and friends throughout the years that you did let know that you were bipolar?
Yeah, it was like a gradual process. I was gradually exposing myself, and right before I posted it on Facebook, I shared it on Facebook with some friends of mine that I hadn't shared it with before. And so when I saw their response and I saw how positively they were reacting, it made me feel confident that what I had to offer was that people were gonna have a positive response to what I had to offer.
The Jewish Orthodox community is a very closed community, and being married and with kids, it must have been quite a struggle to take that act, because in such a small community, there is going to be a lot of talk about it. Did you do anything prior that prepared you for that?
I did. I spoke to my rabbi. So I was worried about whether I should share about my bipolar with my Facebook friends. And also, my husband was a little bit concerned too. So what we decided to do was we contacted our rabbi, and I asked his advice about it. He spoke to both of us on the phone, and I was actually really pleasantly surprised by his response. I was saying, well, what about the fact that people are going to find out, people that didn't know before are going to know now, and how is that going to impact our family? And I loved what he said. He said, these things tend to come out anyway. So at least if you are proactive and you share it, then at least you get to choose the way it comes out. And I loved what he said, and it just really made so much sense to me, and it made me feel really positive about my religion's view on this.
That is really beautiful. Did that help your husband to hear that in terms of supporting you?
Yes. My husband was very supportive all along, but it was really helpful for him to hear what my rabbi had to say, because it made his fears basically just go away. And it was just so empowering. He was encouraging me to share it. Not only that, but when I actually ended up hearing from a local magazine and they asked me if I wanted to publish it, he was even encouraging me to share my name with my entire community, which I didn't end up doing, but it was just amazing to see that he was so supportive of me sharing my story.
So you posted on Facebook and you let the entire community know, and what were the responses?
I got so much positive feedback from everybody. It was amazing. It was such a good feeling. I got all these comments about how brave and courageous I am, and people were, instead of what I thought was going to happen, what I thought was going to happen was that some people would start looking at me differently in more of a negative way. They would think less of me because I had my bipolar, but instead, I actually had people who started to think more positively about me because of my bipolar.
You said that you felt that people appreciated you more.
Right.
Can you share with us some of the responses that you got on Facebook that made you feel and see how they appreciated you more?
Yeah, sure. I just opened up my Facebook, and the first thing that I am reading right now is, Miriam, you express yourself so magnificently. You are a very brave woman to share so openly and honestly, at the risk of being judged by others. The awareness of your story brings to the forefront how much each of us has our own struggles. We only have today. Our lives can be turned completely out of control at any given moment. Each of us has only this minute right now. That's one of the things that somebody wrote.
How did it feel to read that?
It felt really good. I felt really validated and accepted for who I am.
Did anyone react negatively?
If they did, it was to themselves. Nobody posted anything negative on my Facebook page. It was all completely positive. In fact, the first few posts were basically people sharing with me how they can relate to my struggle.
You said that some of them were not your friends, so how did they get to see the post?
I made my post public.
That is a new level of courage.
Yeah, and it was such a good feeling to get people that didn't know me that maybe I knew through a mutual friend or something. When I saw their likes and their comments, it meant so much to me.
That is so beautiful. What opened to you in life? What happened in your life after you posted?
Well, the first thing that happened was that I think I changed because I felt more confident in myself because of what I had shared and because of all the positive feedback that I got. It was like I had been wearing a mask for years and I had been covering myself really tightly. And then all of a sudden I was able to take off that mask and I was able to be more free and be more myself and not have to hide behind my mental illness. One of my neighbors told her daughter about my post, and her daughter was actually doing a presentation on bipolar in her 8th grade class. And she asked me if I would be willing to come to speak to the class. And I was honored to, and I spoke to them, and I felt so fulfilled by it. And it was such a good feeling to connect to the students. And also, I felt like I was doing my part to destigmatize mental illness. And then in addition to that, a few days later, I got a call from a local magazine, and they asked if they would be able to publish what I wrote in their magazine, and I agreed to that. And another great opportunity was to be invited to speak on your podcast. This was a really special opportunity.
It seems that by taking very small steps and gently dipping your feet in the water in a very safe way towards coming out to the public with the truth of you, you have opened an entire new path in life for yourself.
Yeah, it seems like I really have. I mean, the sky is the limit. I could continue doing speaking engagements. I could write a book about my experience. There are so many different paths that I could go down. And this little step really made a big impact on how I view my future.
How do you view your future?
I see my future as having unlimited possibilities. I feel like the sky is the limit. I could do a TED Talk if I really want to. I could go make sure that people in schools are educated about mental illness. I could do so many things because I'm sharing my story about mental illness. I feel like I could change the world in my own unique way.
Which brings us to the beginning where you said you always wanted to impact the world in your own unique way.
Exactly.
That's so beautiful.
Thank you.
You also started your own website where you write about your experiences and share with the world about your thoughts and your feelings and what is happening with you and how life is when you live it with bipolar. Can you tell us what your website is?
Sure. It's miriambipolar.com. And I share my stories and my writings and all that. And I'm going to post in a few days or within the next few days, I'm going to post what I shared with the 8th graders.
A video.
Yep.
You really enjoyed talking to the 8th graders and doing the article and doing this podcast. Have any new opportunities come up recently?
I've been connecting with somebody who has bipolar. She actually read my article. The article that was published in the magazine was actually then copied and pasted into there's this group that has emails and they have phone conversations and all that. And somebody must have gotten a hold of what I wrote and they sent it to this group and they shared my story on the group. And then somebody from that group emailed me, and we've been in contact ever since. So I feel like I'm making a difference by being able to connect with other people who have the same mental illness that I have.
Your path in life is changing, and it seems like you're going in a path that is in a new direction.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to be an advocate for mental illness in the world?
I would love to be. I'm a social worker, so that's something that I can do with my profession. I can help advocate for mental illness. I think that would be great. I think what we need is less stigma and more acceptance of mental illness.
If you could go back and meet your younger you, what would you tell her?
I would have so much to say to her, but instead of telling her things, what I would really want to do is show her. I would want to show her me right now. I would want to show her myself in front of the 8th graders. I'd want to show her my Facebook post that I wrote. And I'd want to show her that things could change, and that while I didn't feel very courageous as a child, I was able to take that on as an adult and change the way that I approached the world.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
Very inspiring. I love that instead of words, you would actually show her an image into her future.
Yeah.
So from where you are now, what image would you like your future self to show you?
I love that question. I would like to see myself stepping further out of my comfort zone. I would like to see myself in a leadership role somewhere, whether it's in the social work world or not in the social work world. But I'd love to see myself continuing to do what I'm doing, but maybe in a bigger way than what I'm doing right now.
So what do you see in that picture?
I see a really confident, expressive person who's standing there in front on a stage talking about my mental illness.
Do you view your mental illness differently now after this experience?
I think so. I think I've come to a lot more acceptance of it. My therapist actually commented on how I'm much more accepting of my mental illness than I was in the past. I have to say, though, that there's still this part of me, this little part of me, that somehow thinks that maybe I could find a doctor who will get me off my medications and help me function without them and just have a normal life and not have bipolar. Because I think there's this part of me that just still doesn't completely accept that I have bipolar.
Is it fair to say that in some ways you have created a gift out of your bipolar?
I think so. I think it's become a gift, and I've also created a gift out of it. It's become a gift because I have learned so much about how to take good care of myself because of my bipolar. I have learned DBT, which is dialectical behavioral therapy. And it has all these great tips for how to deal with emotion regulation and when you're feeling distressed and all that. It's so powerful and so helpful. And I think bipolar, I've made it a gift because I've taken it and used it in a way to help other people and to help myself.
Do you have any regrets about your post in Facebook and how you went about it?
Mostly I don't, but the only regret that I had was that I contacted a social worker that I took a training with, and I asked her about whether or not I should publish in the magazine with my name on it. And she basically told me that there's a lot of stigma in the social work community. Unfortunately, it's still an issue. And so there was this part of me that regretted making my Facebook page public, but it was kind of like I didn't really regret it. I just regretted it a little bit because when I ended up posting another post about with a video of my speaking to the 8th graders, I still made that public. There's still this part of me, though, that wants to break free and be more transparent in my life, that I can help other people by sharing my story. But I also recognize that I'm just at the beginning of my career, and I can still break free and share my story with some people and not everybody. So I'm also leaving the option in my mind that if I decide I want to, I can share with more people.
You recognize that you're at the edge of your comfort zone and that before you take that a step forward more into the world and become more transparent in the world, you need to get a little more comfortable in yourself, just like before you posted on Facebook the first time?
Exactly.
I love that. And when I take that and what your rabbi said and put it together, I can see the continuous of your journey.
Thank you.
What a beautiful story, and what a positive and strong and safe and beautiful way to come out to the world on social media. It's inspirational, and I think we can all take a lesson from the way you handled it in our own lives and our own stories and our own vulnerabilities. Is there anything else that you would like to share with the listeners?
I guess I just want to say to those people that are struggling, that are just on the verge of going out of their comfort zone, just take that little step. Even if it's really, really, really little, just take it, because you never know what it can lead to.
That is so true. Miriam, thank you for sharing your story, and thank you for being courageous. And like you said, this is just the beginning. Thank you so much, Miriam.
Thank you.
Wow, what a story. What a life game changer this is, right? I hope you received something from this podcast and Miriam's story that helped you to be inspired, perhaps see things in new ways, change some of your perceptions, and maybe you were inspired to share yourself in new ways in social medias. I would love to hear your reactions to this, so please feel free and comment below about what you received from this podcast, what you've learned. Perhaps you have your own story that you would like to share with us about your sharing on social media, something that was very vulnerable, and what your experience was. If you have any other story that you would like to share with the rest of us here and our community, please feel free to contact me at leanne@chart-your-life.com. I would love to hear from you and bring your story for everyone to hear and learn from and get inspired. Once again, I would like to invite you to our community on Facebook, the closed Facebook page, Milestones of Courage. So here we are. This is the end of episode 1. Thank you everyone for staying here and listening. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did, and I am looking forward to hearing from you in the comments, hear your stories, what you've learned, your own milestones of courage that you created, and continue our own growth and stepping into our own milestones, creating the life that you want. Thank you everyone. Have a wonderful day.
Every step you take is a milestone in the story of your life, creating the life that you want. Chart your life, chart your life.